The first generation Jaguar XF, coded X250, was launched in late 2007 to replace the S-Type model in the mid-sized executive segment. It was facelifted in July 2011 and remained on sale until 2015 when it was replaced with the XF coded X260. A sport brake model was released in March 2012, and for those with a need for speed, the XFR was available from 2009, with an XFR S brought to market in 2012. Although the XF was commonly sold in 3-litre V6 diesel form in Europe, North Americans generally opted for the 3-litre V6 petrol, or gas, engine as well as the V8. The addition of a 4-cylinder diesel to the range in 2012 created a refreshed interest from buyers in Europe that needed lower emissions for company car or company lease tax purposes. We'll talk more specifically about the motors later on in the guide. The mid-cycle refresh in 2011, along with the relatively wide range of engines and models, mean that sales figures remain steady throughout the X250 Jaguar XF lifespan. Usually the dip seen in the last couple of years before a model is replaced wasn't witnessed with the XF, which is great news for the used buyer of today, as there should be lots of choice whether you're shopping for an early or late model. Although XFR and XFRS buyers will limit potential options and still will want to look for overall condition first rather than any particular specification or colour. Popular specifications include the luxury and portfolio trims, which may be called premium luxury or premium portfolio in your home market. An executive edition was released in the UK aimed at company car buyers with a detuned 3-litre and 2.2-litre diesel motor. Today, as a used buyer, we would look for luxury specification or higher. The SE model, also called Sport in some markets, may offer the best value, but to some may feel a little under-equipped unless the original purchaser added in some optional extra items. 3 things to consider before buying an XF of this age is that firstly, no model is Euro 6 emissions compliant, as it was replaced prior to these emission laws starting. The lightweight construction of the outer skin saves weight and adds to the agility of the car, but may make body shop repairs more time consuming and difficult, adding costs, so try to find an example with a clean body with as few dents as possible. Lastly, although the construction does carry over from the S-Type, it is revised and the suspension along with the mounting points are shared with the XK model. The chassis is also stretched and compliant with more stringent crash safety regulations than the earlier S-Type. Most recalls made on the XF were on earlier models and for minor issues. 2 of these early recalls to note though is a potential loss of power steering fluid for 2010 models with VIN range R57917 to R78765. The other is a recall for rear seatbelt restraints on production up to October 2008 with VINs up to R22438. If looking at either of these model years, check the VIN and see if the recall work has been carried out. Your local Jaguar service centre should have a record of this repair. Later on, a recall was issued for models between 2013 to 2015 with a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine. A bolt retaining an idler pulley for the accessory belt could fracture, leading to a loss of air conditioning and, more importantly, the water pump along with the power steering fluid. A warning will illuminate on the dashboard and the vehicle should be stopped as soon as it is safe to do so. Lifting the bonnet will likely show an accessory belt detached or no longer under tension. Recovery and a new idler pulley will have the vehicle in operation again. Do not attempt to drive a vehicle to a repair centre unless it is very close, as the loss of the water pump will likely cause the engine to overheat and catastrophic engine failure could occur. VIN range SAJK C05 M8 DP 550936 to SAJ WA 0FS 7FP U88784 are noted under this recall. In July 2018, a recall for Takata airbags was announced on the X250 generation Jaguar XF. It is strongly suggested you find out if this recall work is necessary to a used purchase or one you currently own, as moisture build-up in the airbag inflator propeller can cause degradation and in the event of an accident metal shards can be projected through the airbag causing serious injury or worse. Most owners will have been contacted by Jaguar by now, but when purchasing a used example it is worth double checking for peace of mind. On to the common faults, and we should stress that there are common but not guaranteed failure points. We found reports from people that had owned an XF and regularly serviced with a specialist Jaguar garage that had done service work and minor repairs each year but hadn't faced any particularly large bills. Common complaints centred around the sat-nav or media failures rather than the running gear. Although body repairs were highlighted as a more expensive than expected cost, it is especially important to make sure any repair centre has someone that is aluminium trained. If not, they may just make the problem worse and harder to be repaired. Check the wheels on an XF when looking around the car, and if possible looking to the barrels as best you can. Cracked wheels have been reported, and any sign of welds in the barrel will indicate a previous repair. It is generally larger wheels with slimmer sidewall tyres that have this issue reported. Touchscreens that freeze, go blank or get stuck on the Jaguar logo are one of the more common complaints. Reprogramming or replacing the module is the long-term solution. Corrosion of the connectors may cause the overhead console lights to stop illuminating. The switches and buttons should remain functioning if this happens. Any creaking noise from models fitted with a sunroof can be resolved with a revised seal. Taking it to a specialist may add cost to the job, but should negate the risk of the seal being refitted improperly, which can cause a leak and electrical issues. Window regulators can fail, either the switch or the mechanism are known to fail, especially on the driver's door. Finally, a technical bulletin was announced by Jaguar in 2014, coded JTB00301NAS1 for 2010 to 2012 model year production vehicles equipped with a 5-litre V8 engine. The fuel gauge can return faulty readings. As ever, our lists are non-exhaustive, and so if you know of any other common faults to look out for, please add them in the comments below. Moving on to the motors, and a reminder to share the video if you find it helpful. In total, 7 different engines were offered in the XF X250 generation, although few world markets will have been offered every option. We'll start with the 3 diesel engines and then move on to the petrols. First up is the diesel available at launch in the XF. This was a 2.7 litre TDV6 creating 204 brake horsepower with an average of 37.6 miles per gallon or 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres. This was replaced in 2009 for the 2010 model year vehicles with a 3 litre TDV6 that was updated from the earlier 2.7 and offered 208, 237 and 271 brake horsepower, with MPG ranging from 41.5 to 46 or 6.81 to 6.14 litres per 100 kilometres. Earlier 2.7 models can have issues with the oil pump housing. Crankshaft failure has also been reported, which results in engine failure. Both displacements can suffer from Egr blockages, and so it is worth seeing if these have been replaced or serviced at any time. When viewing a car, it is worth noting that oil level sensors can fail on these engines, and so look for any signs of oil leaks in the engine bay, as the sensor may be giving a faulty full reading when in fact the oil has reduced below a safe operating level. For total peace of mind, an oil change after purchase may be worth the additional cost. Finally, consider the type of driving you'll be doing if in the market where a vehicle is equipped with a DPF. These are filters that will eventually need replacing. They also require longer journeys to avoid blocking. If you want an XF and will mainly do short journeys, a petrol variant may be a better option. Something to remember if trying to decide between the V6 diesel models is that the automatic gearbox paired with the motors changed twice in the XF lifespan. Initially, they began with a ZF 6HP26 transmission until 2010, when this was swapped for the second generation version of that gearbox. After 2012, an 8-speed ZF8 HP70 gearbox is fitted. Next is the 2.2 litre 4-cylinder diesel that joined the XF range in 2011. 3 power outputs of 161, 187 and 197 brake horsepower are available, with an average fuel economy of 52.3 miles per gallon or 5.4 litres per 100 kilometres. These motors are considered fairly reliable and durable, although timing chain replacement along with the guides and tensioners are one of the bigger bills that these can suffer from. Most complaints centre around the Egr valves, turbos and high pressure fuel pump, with the majority of owners that have had the failure with one of these items having higher mileage examples of over 120,000 miles. To counter this, we did find an owner that had covered 240,000 miles in the 2.2 litre diesel XF, having changed the turbo and timing change once, but apart from regular servicing still gets 50 miles per gallon and reliable running, although oil intervals had been shortened to 8,000 miles. Moving on to the petrol engines, and we'll start with the 3 litre V6 which was available from launch. A 3 litre Supercharged engine was then offered from 2012 onwards. The naturally aspirated engine creates 235 brake horsepower with an even 30 miles per gallon or 9.4 litres per 100 kilometres, and the Supercharged one has 335 brake horsepower and 25.5 miles per gallon or 11.1 litres per 100 kilometres. The main area of concern for these motors is the cooling pipework, so check for any leaks, especially around the Y pipe towards the front of the engine. Timing chains needing replacing have been reported on earlier versions of the motors, but from around 2012 onwards these parts are revised and far fewer reports of replacements were found in our research. If looking at a supercharged model, listen for any metallic clicking or rattle on cold start or when the engine is shut down. If you hear the noise, a torsion isolator has failed in the supercharger and will need replacement. The 4.2 litre V8 started in the XF with both the supercharged and naturally aspirated option. The V8 was much more popular in North America than Europe and is a dependable motor, if a little thirsty compared to the diesel models and smaller petrol engines. In naturally aspirated form, these make 296 brake horsepower and 414 brake horsepower when supercharged. Fuel economy is between 22.4 to 25.1 miles per gallon. That's 12.6 to 11.2 litres per 100 kilometres. The most important element with these motors is service history. A well-kept example shouldn't cause any surprise bills. In 2012, a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 was added to the range, making 238 brake horsepower, with an average of 31.7 miles per gallon or 8.9 litres per 100 kilometres. These aren't so common, as owners in markets with the 2.2 litre diesel engine usually opted for the additional fuel economy. However, in other applications, the 2 litre can suffer from cooling issues, EGR failures and shortened turbocharger lifespan. The key problem is cooling, which has caused engine failure as 2 of the engine cylinders have overheated, but again we'll stress that almost all the reports we have found of this were in other models fitted with this motor and not XF owners. Finally, there is the 5 litre V8 introduced in 2009 as both a supercharged and naturally aspirated V8. The entry V8 makes 380 brake horsepower, while the supercharged engine ranges from 465 brake horsepower to 503 and finally 542 brake horsepower, with an official average of 24 to 26 miles per gallon across the range, or 11.1 litres per 100 kilometres. These motors were seen in the XF, XFR and XFRS model. The most common complaint was timing chain guide failure, although a revision in 2012 onwards went a long way to resolving this issue. Jaguar announced a technical service bulletin in 2004 for the 2010 to 2012 model years with a 5 litre V8 for faulty fuel gauges that would either remain stuck in one position or fluctuate. Either a Jaguar dealer or a specialist should be aware of this bulletin and the procedure to rectify the issue. Another technical service bulletin was announced in 2014 with a wider range of 2010 to 2014 XF models with a 5 litre V8 supercharged engine, this time for knocking noise from the front suspension. Affected models will likely have a serial number of R47154 onwards. For our picks, we would look for either a 2.2 litre diesel or 3 litre V6 petrol if on a lower budget, and on a higher budget we'd look at the later 3 litre V6 diesel, or if the budget was stretched, the supercharged XFRS. If we've missed anything, please add it in the comments below. Otherwise, all the best with your car search.